Randy comes up to me and he says, I can't even remember the town we're in, but Randy did. And he said, I saw you looking at list. Nobody looked at my list.
So, John, you told me about your wrestling fandom. I am guessing, like all of us, you were a Hulkamaniac as well. So, what was the process like in getting Hulk Hogan to be a part of this project, and how do you coordinate with him to be a part of this book?
Honestly, a lot of that credit goes to Luke. As you may or may not know, Luke and Hulk Hogan are very close friends. Hulk has his shop in Clearwater Beach, and Luke used to have the gym upstairs. So as we kind of got towards the end of the book, I reached out to Luke and I said, hey, do you think you can put me in touch with Terry? And he made it happen. So it was kind of neat. I mean, to give Hulk Hogan a call and to hear his voice, which is so iconic, coming over the phone. I recorded it, obviously, to get the story that he gave us for the book. A funny story, I came home and I just hit play with the speaker on real loud for my wife to hear. And she goes, oh my God, that's Hulk Hogan, you know. But it was a treat. I mean, to be able to, speak with someone that iconic in the business and to hear his take on Luke and Butch, and actually how humble of a man he is about them and how they helped him in his career. So, and he really looked up to them. And you'll read that little clip from him in the book. But to hear these guys and gals who were so big in the industry, who a lot of people looked at, I mean, Hulkamania, but when it gets down to the nitty gritty and you talk to these guys, again, like Luke himself said, he was 25 years in the business before Luke was about 25 years in the business before he ever got to the WWE. And Hogan was basically still a baby at that point in the wrestling. So he really looked up to Luke and Butch, and he let that be known in this book. So it was nice.
So without going into spoilers, Luke, is there anything you can share about your experience with Hulk Hogan? Maybe something that is not in the book, just so that we don't give any spoilers away.
No, I lived on the beach, Clearwater Beach, and a little place called Indian Shores. It's just down from Clearwater Beach on the water. And when I first came, Terry got me to move to the beach area. I was living in Charlotte, and I'd lived in Tampa before, but I never lived over on the beaches. And he says, why don't you move to the beach? And I said, he says, I live there, and I rented a place on the water, bloody 300 yards from his home at the start. So he was just down the road, I could walk down to his home, and then he could walk down there. But then he built a place on the Intercoastal. I was on Indian Shores, and Reddington Beach is a thin piece of land, about 200 yards wide at the widest, and you have to go over a bridge to go to it, you know what I mean? The Intercoastal, the Gulf is on one side, and the Intercoastal's behind you. And about 6 months later, he built a house on the Intercoastal so he could have a dock with his boats and that, and he used to come around to my place, come out into the Gulf, and come outside my place, honk on his horn on the boat. I used to swim out to the boat, get on the boat, and go out out for a day with him on the water. And we had some crazy times. A lot of bars down along the waterfront and on the Intercoastal. We'd have a great time for about 3 or 4 hours on the water. That's how I first really got to know him.
That is absolutely wonderful. And what stage of his career was this? Was he already the biggest star in the world?
Oh yes, this was in 88, 87. He went with Vince Jr. I think in 84, 85, WrestleMania 85. So Hulkamania was running wild. I'll just say this one thing. In my book I say this, but one of my great experiences was being in the ring in a battle royal in the 80s in MSG, Madison Square Garden, the place for all entertainment. And I'm in the ring and a lot of the boys are in the ring. This is about 1988, 89, and the last man to come to the ring is Hulk Hogan. Well, Butch could put his mouth in my ear and I wouldn't have heard a word. The aura in the arena, the hairs on my arms stood. I can't explain it to you. This is when Hulkamania, WrestleMania was running wild. You know what I mean? And the energy in the building, you could never get it like that again. I know we've had Rock and Stone Cold, but this was the first. You know, when they blew it wide open. I can't say any more about it. It's you know, that'll always be in my mind that night when he came to the ring. And that, you know, I'd only been in the WWF maybe a year then. You know, maybe not even that. And it was insane.
It's crazy you say that. I mean, I was watching a few Bushwhackers matches on the WWE YouTube channel to prepare for this interview. And the amount of talent at that time was just so incredible. And you guys stood out, obviously, but on the commentary booth, we had Vince McMahon and we had Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm sure he could have been a part of this book as well in some capacity had he still been with us. Do you have any memories of working with Savage?
Yes, Randy. Hey, Randy was a person that everything had to be perfect. You know, his matches, those matches of his, he went over them and over them. They had to be perfect. But I had one time he called me out. Randy was very jealous. Anyone that looked at Elizabeth, or, you know, and he caught them looking, he would confront them. Okay, this was about, you know, in the 80s still, and we're in a big arena where the trucks come in the back, and they drive them in and drop everything off, the 18-wheelers, and then there's the hallways with all the dressing rooms. We're all sitting in the open. All the boys are sitting around where the trucks come in on containers and that. We're all bullshitting well before the matches, you know. And then Randy and Liz come, and Liz goes first or second, and Randy, and they come in and go to the dressing room, right? About 2 weeks later, Randy comes up to me and he says, I can't even remember the town we're in, but Randy did, and he said, I saw you looking at Liz. Nobody looked at my Liz. And he said, and he got right on my back, right? He actually called me outside, you know, because of, I didn't even remember the town. I didn't even remember looking at her. You know what I mean? He knew the town we're in, because we were working a town every night, you know, at 2 in the weekend, 2 on Saturday or 2 on Sunday. And he called out the town, what day it was and everything. It must have been on his mind eating him. You know what I mean?
So that's
how jealous, you know, if you know, I know Randy's upstairs now, God bless him, but even when Elizabeth went shopping, grocery shopping, if she wasn't back at a certain time, he would go out looking for her.
Wow. Hey, Luke, you never know, Luke. Maybe Liz told him that she thought you were cute.
Stop it. yeah. But that's how Randy was. All the boys knew he was like that, mate. He was just jealous, you know. No one. That's why there was a big stink with him and Hogan for so long.
Okay. I mean that's also an interesting thing to ask, John. Are there stars that who are not with us that you would have liked as a part of this project?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, looking back, there are a lot of guys probably that fans don't know today that are watching this, back from Luke's and Butch's early careers back in New Zealand. Some of their early stuff up in Grand Prix wrestling. I would have loved to have been able to talk to the Vachons, for instance, guys like that, guys that they worked with really before they became big in the United States as they were working their way over here. It was a little easier to reach out and grab the guys from the WWF just because it was a little bit more recent. But some of that early stuff, when they were really developing their characters, I wish I could have reached out and really, had some words with them and find out more about these guys when they were younger. And in fact, you should even ask Luke, when his first character actually in wrestling, back when he was a teenager. People don't realize this. I think Luke started, he can correct me if I'm wrong, when he was 16 or 17 years old, he started wrestling. And he played a character that was very similar to an Adrian Street type character, the exotic Adrian Street. So it was a lot different than the character he eventually became, both as a sheep herder. What's that? Yep.
Sweet William.
Sweet William was his name. Sweet Williams.
Amazing, amazing.